Fears in Sochi, especially after that dramatic scare in the skies right as the opening ceremonies kicked off. ABC's chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross here with us on new details on what appeared to be an airplane hijacking, and you also have some developments this morning just happening overnight.
That's right. Good morning, Martha. Russian officials are telling ABC News this morning that police have killed 5 suspected terrorists after a standoff in the capital of Dagestan, all connected, they say, to previous suicide bomb attacks. As for that attempted hijacking, it all unfolded just as the opening ceremonies were getting underway, and at least for a short time, it had certain echoes of the 9/11 terror attacks on New York and Washington.
High drama surrounded the incident, underscoring ongoing concerns about Olympic security. Turkish jet fighters had been scrambled, and once the passenger jet landed in Istanbul, a police SWAT team sneaked on board. Authorities identified the foiled hijacker as a 45-year-old Ukrainian man who they said broke into the cockpit, claimed to have a bomb, and demanded the release of prisoners in Ukraine. No bomb was found, and the quick-thinking flight crew tricked the hijacker into thinking the jet had landed in Sochi, as he had demanded. But what if it had been a successful terror hijacking with the plane heading for Sochi? The opening ceremonies had just begun when the first reports came of a hijacking in progress. Russian helicopters patrolled the airspace over the Olympic Village, and anti-aircraft missile batteries in the mountains above Sochi were ready to shoot down the passenger jet if necessary.
Clearly, if an aircraft is heading for a ground target, it's totally plausible to think that someone might be given the order to fire to take down a commercial plane.
The air scare came just days after U.S. authorities warned of a possible plot to explode a bomb on a jetliner heading into Sochi. Law enforcement officials say terrorists may have found a way to assemble a small bomb on board an aircraft using explosives packed into toothpaste tubes, which this week were banned in carry-on luggage for flights to Russia. Officials told ABC News the plot may also involve tiny detonators obtained from Islamist fighters in Syria.
The effort to put a bomb on an airplane in and around Sochi is an ongoing concern right now that Russian intelligence agencies are looking very closely at.
In the end, the first weekend of the Olympics has gone off without a hitch, but authorities say it is far too soon to let down their guard for the Islamist terrorists who have threatened to disrupt these games. For This Week, Brian Ross, ABC News, New York.
Our thanks to Brian. Let's bring in Congressman Mike Rogers, chair of the House Intelligence Committee. Right now, he joins us from London. We saw that security scare Friday in Brian's report, and we know there is still an ongoing concern, despite the fact that it may feel okay there right now. You get intelligence briefs, intelligence notifications every day. What should we be concerned about right now?
Yeah, first of all, the guards, gates, and guns portion of this is really unparalleled for an Olympic Games. So the Russians have been very good about that physical security presence, an outer ring, and then they've had inner rings of security, so that what your reporter was discussing is the closest proximity. So you won't see the big guards, gates, and guns. That gets pushed out. The other part that I think they've done well is aggressive counterterrorism operations, and I think Brian Ross talked about that earlier. They are aggressively pursuing leads that they have. Some include kicking indoors and taking people down in the way that they did in Dagestan. That is a preemptive counterterrorism strike to try to secure the games. Internationally, the intelligence is never good as I've seen it, or is as good as I've seen it. Excuse me. So the Brits are working with the French, are working with the United States, and everyone in between to try to find those pieces of intelligence that might help protect the games. The one last weakness, and this was the tension between Russia and the United States, is that internal sharing of intelligence that we believe would be important.
You know, a few weeks ago, we saw those reports about the so-called Black Widow suicide bombers. Those women have not been found. How big a threat is that now to those games or outside those games?
Well, you have to take them at face value. They have had successful events. They blew up a train station and 2 buses within the months leading up to the event. We know that there are individuals that fit those descriptions who have the capability to actually pull off the event. That's what makes it so serious and so dangerous. So it is something that they're looking for. They're trying to use every piece of intelligence they have external to Russia They're kind of going on their own internal to Russia, and we can only hope that they'll find those individuals before they're able to penetrate any of the rings. And I don't believe that the terrorists think they have to have a venue event, a terrorist attack on a particular venue. They just have to have some disruptive event somewhere, and that's what I think makes them more dangerous than the folks that believe they have to have some big event at a venue.
Well, I think we heard this week the head of the National Counterterrorism Center, Matt Olson, said there is, quote, a substantial potential for a terrorist attack outside the venue of the Olympics. Is that where you're focusing?
Clearly, and again, I think there were, again, lots of physical presence there, and I think they're going to try to find the weakest point that they can find, and it may be outside one of those rings of security. So that's obviously our concern. It's the softest part of the security part.
And just quickly here, if there is an incident, do you believe the United States is prepared to evacuate the athletes?
I think all the preparation that can be done to protect our athletes from a United States perspective is there, and it's exceptionally well done. So I believe that if there is any event that would lead to the evacuation of our athletes, that in fact would happen, and would happen orderly and in good order. Again, we were hoping that the Russians would share more internal information on security threats. So the operation in Dagestan is a great example. That obviously had some nexus to the games. It would have been helpful, I think, if we had a full and robust relationship, that we could have shared that kind of information, so we could have compared it to information that we get from all of our intelligence partners around the world.
Clearly, that's important. Thanks, Congressman Rogers.